Hello, Algebra 1. I've got a warm-up daily grit for you, so please pause the video and take a few minutes and let's factor these polynomials. So hopefully everybody remembers how to factor. If you don't remember how to factor, the good news is you can go right back to our Chapter 7 Google site and you can practice factoring there, or you can go on IXL to practice factoring. So let's start with number 1. And just a reminder that when we start with factoring, we always look for the greatest common factor first. So greatest common factor first. After greatest common factor, we'll look to see if there are 4 or more. If there are 4 or more, then we will try to factor by grouping. After that, maybe we want to guess and check. Usually we guess and check when we have a trinomial. After that, maybe it only has 2 terms, like number 4 down here on the bottom, and we want to factor using the difference of 2 squares pattern. And maybe it's a perfect square trinomial. So let's see what we've got here in number 1. What I see in number 1 is that we have a greatest common factor of 2 and x to the first. So we can take out 2x, and when we take out 2x, 2 divided by 2 is 1, x squared divided by x is x, 1x is what's left after we divide. Negative 10x divided by 2x is negative 5. We just factored out the greatest common factor. Number 2 is a guess and check situation, and it's super simple because there is a 1 up front. And when there is a 1 up front, all we have to do is look at that last number. It is negative 12. What are factors of negative 12 that have a sum of negative 4? That is a negative 6 and a positive 2. X minus 6, x plus 2. We can do a quick check here using the FOIL method. X times x is x squared. X times 2 plus 2x. Negative 6 times x, negative 6x. Negative 6 times 2, negative 12. Our middle terms give us the negative 4x. So those are the correct factors. Number 3 is a guess and check. There's a 2 up front, so not as cut and dried as the last one, but we're going to make a guess and then we're going to check it. The good news is it's 2, so 2x and 1x. And then we need a 5. Now, if we put a 5 here, when we do our outers, it's going to give us a 10, which is pretty far away from 3. So I'm not going to put my 5 there. I'm going to put my 5 here. And 2 minus 5 just happens to be negative 3. So I need a negative 5 and a positive 2. There's my guess. So first sides, outsides, insides, and last sides. And 2 minus 5 gives us the negative 3 in the middle. Our guess is confirmed by our check. Number 4 is a DOTS all the way. It is a difference of 2 perfect squares. That's what the difference of squares is. And its factors are just conjugate expressions of its square roots. So the square root of 25x squared is 5x. So 5x. The square root of 49 is 7. 5x minus 7, 5x plus 7. So we just factored those 4 problems, and we need factoring sometimes in order to solve. That's what we're going to see in today's lesson. This is a continuation of the zero product property. So zero product property, part 2. Sometimes we must factor first in order to solve a quadratic equation. So I'm going to give you some steps here. Write down these steps. That would be very wise. Step 1, the very first thing we need to do if we are going to solve a quadratic equation and it's not factored is we need to put it in standard form. If you recall, standard form is all about descending order. descending order according to the exponents. So in our particular equation that we have here, it sort of is in descending order. We just need to do one thing. We've got 2, we've got 1, and then we've got the constant term on the other side. So if we add that 10 back to the other side, we end up with x squared plus 11x plus 10 equals 0. So put in standard form and set equal to 0. We need it to be set equal to 0 in order to utilize the zero product property. So standard form has the exponents in descending order. So 2, 1, and none. So that's what we're looking for. Descending order, standard form, set equal to 0. Critical, step 1. So, step 2, after we've got it in descending order and we set it equal to 0, then we need to factor the polynomial. So I've started us off with a simple one. There's a 1 up front. When there's a 1 up front, all we have to do is ask the question, what are factors of 10 that add to 11? That's 10 and 1, x plus 10, x plus 1. So there's your 1x, there's your 10x. 1x plus 10x gives us 11x in the middle, so these are our factors. So step 1, put in standard form and set equal to 0. Step 2, factor the polynomial. Step 3, set each factor. Here's factor number 1, here's factor number 2. Set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So factor number 1, x plus 10 equals 0. So first answer, minus 10, x equals negative 10. So there's our first answer. Second factor, x plus 1 equals 0. So set each factor equal to 0 and solve. Minus 1, the ones cancel, x equals negative 1. Two answers, two factors, two distinct factors are going to yield two distinct answers. So step 1, we put in standard form and set equal to 0. Step 2, we factored the polynomial. Step 3, set each factor equal to 0 and solve. Be sure that you write down our steps. So here's a problem from scratch from the very beginning. So step number 1, put it in standard form and set it equal to 0. So to get it in standard form, we need to move the 3x over, and we also need to move the 40 over. So step 1, x squared minus 3x minus 40 equals 0. So we have done step 1. We put it in standard form and we have set it equal to 0. Setting it equal to 0 is critical. If it's not set equal to 0, we cannot use the zero product property. So step 2, factor the polynomial. So we are about to factor right here. Once again, there's a 1 up front. When there's a 1 up front, it's so easy. What are factors of negative 40? Well, the factors of 40, 1 and 40, 2 and 20, not divisible by 3, 4 times 10, and 5 times 8. Which one of these pairs could ever add up to negative 3? It's that one, a positive 5 and a negative 8. X plus 5, x minus 8. So that's our guess. Give it a quick check in your head. X times x is x squared. X times negative 8 is negative 8x. Positive 5 times x plus 5x. And then lastly, 5 times negative 8 is our negative 40, and negative 8 plus 5 is where we get the negative 3. So our factors are correct. Our guess is correct. Step 3, set each factor we've got 1, 2. Set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So x plus 5 equals 0. X minus 8 equals 0. So solve. We set them equal to 0. Now we're going to solve. Minus 5, x equals negative 5. Plus 8, x equals 8. Our solution set is negative 5 and 8. Those are the two elements that our solution set contains. Step 1, put it in descending order and set equal to 0. Step 2, factor. Step 3, set each factor equal to 0 and solve. And one last problem, 2x squared equals 13x plus 7. So step number 1, put it in standard form, which is descending order, and set equal to 0. So the 13x is moving over and the 7 is moving over. So step 1, 2x squared. Remember, if 13x moves from the right to the left, it's just going to become negative 13x. It's the same as subtracting 13x from both sides. Plus 7, subtract 7 from both sides. So minus 7 on the left. So standard form, set equal to 0. That is step 1. Step 2, factor the polynomial. Factor the polynomial. This is a guess and check. It's got a 2 on the front, so we need a 2x and we need an x. Now think about it. Where, and this is 7, it also is prime, so where's the 7 going to go? If we put the 7 here, 2 times 7 is going to give us 14, which is very close to 13. I believe the 7 needs to go there. The 1 needs to go there. We need a negative 14 and a positive 1. So there's my negative 14. 2 times negative 7 is negative 14. 1 times x is 1x. Negative 14 plus 1 is what will give us the negative 13 in the middle. So our factors check. So step 1, put it in standard form and set it equal to 0. Step 2, factor the polynomial. Step 3, set each factor equal to 0. These factors are distinct. Set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So on the first one, minus 1, 2x equals negative 1, divide by 2, x equals negative 1/2. Remember, fractions are our friends. Don't panic, just leave them as fractions. Plus 7, x equals 7. Our solution set contains 2 answers because there are 2 factors, and this is a quadratic equation. So 2 distinct answers here, negative 1/2 and positive 7. So step 1, put it in descending order, set equal to 0. Step 2, factor the polynomial. Step 3, set each factor equal to 0 and solve. This is a quadratic equation. We're expecting 2 answers. That is the second part of the zero product property.